Who's ready to play with some solder inlay? Hi, this is James again, and I'm going to guide you through the process of doing solder inlay. If you're not familiar, this is a basic metalsmithing and jewelry technique that is often taught to beginners, and I think it has really fantastic potential, and I think a lot of people sort of forget about it once they do it as a beginning sample or something like that. So I'm just going to get into it and show you all the steps and how to approach it. So if you want to incorporate solder inlay into a piece, I would recommend doing this process first and then incorporating it into the rest of the work. So in this particular sample, it's 20 gauge copper that's been annealed, and then you want to get nice, crisp, deep stamped impressions. So you have your metal annealed, fully cleaned. I would also give a good wipe to whatever stamps you're going to be using, because I've found that having the impressions nice and clean and deep will really help throughout the whole process. So once you stamp the piece, again, I would recommend just warming it slightly to burn off any oils that might have gotten on there from the stamps, and then again, just scrub your piece and get it nice and clean before you're going to begin the application of the solder. So I would recommend using small pieces of hard solder and placing them strategically within each stamping, so that then you have a little bit of less cleanup to do once you flood the solder. You want to have enough solder that it's going to completely fill your impressions, and the more straight the stamped impressions have been made, the better sort of finished inlay you're going to have at the end. So this is a slightly different sample, and you can see that with just general texture and shapes tend to work a little bit better, because it is difficult to get letters to read really well depending on how well they were stamped, and then how much you have to clean up after you've flooded the solder. But the process is relatively simple, where you're just going to flux, heat up until the point that the solder has flown through your impressions, and then pickle it, and then just go through the removal process, starting with coarse files to just remove any excess solder that is above your stamped impressions, and then subsequent finishing to just remove any of those coarse file marks. So here's a finished version of that sample, along with vibro engraved comments and notes on it. And most of this sample has been taken to 400 grit with the sandpaper after the coarse filing, and then 220 sandpaper, and then 320 sandpaper. And as you can tell from the finished sample and the different comments, you can see how some of the aspects of the letters have been removed because they weren't stamped deep and evenly. And then also there's some of the stamped areas that weren't completely filled with solder. So before you do final finishing, you want to make sure, and if necessary, go back and fill with more solder. And you also want to be careful while you're filing that you don't gash deeper into the metal, because you might lose more of the solder inlay in removing those deep filing gashes. So there's a lot of things to keep in mind, even though it's a relatively basic technique. But I think it's a wonderful technique that has really great possible applications for design elements within your pieces. So if you give it a try, please share it, and I'd love to see how it goes for you. I hope this video has been helpful. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to hit that subscribe button so that you can hear from me when I post future videos. Thanks for stopping by.